can AI have consciousness, and what is consciousness? Where do you stand on this?
I could imagine that AI will behave conscious in the near term and could be conscious in the long term. I think agility is one of the most important things. The people who are going to succeed the most aren't the ones who are smarter or the ones who are wealthier. It's going to be those who are more agile, more rapidly able to adapt to what's going on.
Now, you mentioned aliens. So you said they do exist. Are they hiding? Have we just not found them?
When you talk about hiding something in plain sight, I have to believe there is something that is very real there.
Do you think lifespan would be routinely above, let's say, 150, less than 2050?
Yes, I think we will reach a lifespan, not for everybody, but for those who do the work.
A very, very long time. You're one of my favorite people because you're one of the few people that has been in longevity for a long time, which is a personal obsession of mine. I just don't understand how no one else places that as the biggest priority for them. It doesn't make sense to me. And then you've I wouldn't say pivoted because you've been in AI and watching it for a long time, but you've focused a lot more on AI recently, and your conversations have been some of the best. So you're one of the few, maybe
Thank you.
less than 5 podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis. So I'm pretty excited for this conversation.
Thank you, Mario. Pleasure. Thanks for moving it up an hour later so I could get my sleep in today.
Do you measure your sleep? Because I was with Brian Johnson 2
Oh.
weeks ago, and he bothers me how he always gets 100%.
Yeah, well, he gets 100% on probably his 8 sleep. And yes, I do measure my sleep, and every different device measures it differently. So I might get a 90 or 92 on my Oura Ring and 100% on my 8 sleep. 8 sleep is a different grader. So yeah.
8 sleep is the bed, correct?
Mattress.
Yeah, I've got that one here.
There's a Whoop, there's an 8 sleep, and there's an Oura Ring sort of as the default go-to. But yeah, let's jump in.
I want to start off with something that concerns me a lot, and that's really the rapid pace of change that we're experiencing right now, especially when it comes to AI. And I want to go through something David Sachs said. I mean, you were talking about it recently. David said that he predicts a 1,000,000-fold increase in AI capabilities within 4 years. So first, that's a lot faster than any of us really predicted.
It is. I saw the clip where David was speaking about that and breaking down on terms of the number of GPUs and the processing power and the algorithms. And it's not inconsistent with others have been saying, right? I had Elon on my stage at my Abundance Summit saying we're going to see 100x in a year. And 100x in a year, if you multiply it out, it adds up very quickly towards a 1,000,000-fold. And we're seeing, I think, just the tip of the iceberg. Then Eric Schmidt comes out and saying, listen, AI is underhyped. And it is materializing at that speed. We're seeing $1 billion a day being invested in AI across the major players. Right? I have a AI fund out of MIT investing in startups out of that ecosystem. And what we're seeing is that the peak in terms of where a person would be starting $1 billion unicorn used to be in their early 30s to mid 30s. Now the peak is in the age 20 to 24. A lot of people are flowing in. And because they have these incredible tools, they're able to build companies that iterate more rapidly than ever. And it's not that that's inherently bad. It's that the human brain and human society has never seen anything like this. And our ability to adapt is pretty damn good. I mean, the things that we do today would be considered godlike, just a few decades ago. And we think about it as normal. But, how much of that rapid acceleration can we absorb? I don't know, but here's the point. It's going to happen and we're going to all see it. And it's going to be happening in the next, 2 to 5 years. It's not 20 years out or 10 years out.
before talking about how and if we can adapt to this change, you talked about the next unicorns will be built by people in the age of 20 to 24. How will that look like? Is that a person with another 100 founders, 10 founders? Is it a person with 1,000 agents?
Yeah, so it's going to be both. So my fund out of New York with Dave London is called Link XPV, Exponential Ventures. And what we're seeing is you've got a MIT freshman, sophomore. 80% of our deals come out of MIT and Harvard. So it's very highly concentrated there. MIT's got the largest AI lab. It's called CSAIL, Computer Science AI Lab. And what we're seeing is small teams, typically two to four best friends out of a fraternity, out of a living group, are beginning to experiment. And the tools that they have to build something now, they don't need a massive organization. They're able to build very rapidly in software, and iterate. And it's not that they're smarter than any other entrepreneurs out there. It's that they are not encumbered by previous ideas and they're willing to try crazy ideas, right? I say the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. If it wasn't a crazy idea yesterday, it wouldn't be a breakthrough today. And so they're willing to try crazy ideas, and one out of 1,000, one out of 10,000 might work. And then you got a multi-billion-dollar startup. The next thing will be a founder or a couple of founders. It's difficult and lonely to start something just by yourself, and having somebody else there with you, I think, is an important element of entrepreneurship. But they'll build it with AI agents for sure. We've been predicting for a while the emergence of a billion-dollar startup with a couple of guys or gals and a bunch of AIs. So this is just going to be accelerating, and that acceleration brings more capital to the table. It's not just venture capitalists now; it's nation states racing to get me some. And we're seeing startups that are day one bringing in $2 billion at a $10 billion valuation. It's insane. It really is.
You talked about building the next crazy idea. We're getting into a world where nothing really seems crazy. I was just talking to people about the movie, I forgot what it's called, with Ryan Reynolds, where an NPC in a game becomes conscious and a human falls in love with it. I forgot the movie's name.
There's been a few of those. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The one I watched, it's a Ryan Reynolds one. The character is an NPC and then later gains consciousness, thinking it's human. But what would you say is the craziest idea you've either invested in or been pitched and you're like, hey, it's too crazy for me?
Oh, God. So I'm seeing a lot of incredible deals that are pretty insane in the longevity space, right? In the AI space, what's interesting is the ideas, when we see them, have some pretty extraordinary development already. They're not ideas. We're not seeing ideas in the AI space because ideas go very quickly to a first prototype. And so we're seeing prototypes in this space. And so I'm trying to think of what would be
longevity. Obviously, we're going to be talking about longevity as well. Something in the longevity space is even more exciting to me on a personal level.
Yeah. So jumping into that for a little bit, a lot of the work going on for me in longevity that's going to have the biggest impact is divided into stem cell related technologies and epigenetic reprogramming. And the two are to some degree related because young stem cells are reprogramming the epigenetics of the cells that you're incorporating them into. So we're seeing technologies where I'll take my stem cells or my immune system cells and co-incubate them with youthful, call them cord blood or placental cells, put them together across a membrane, and the youthful placental cells will re-educate my 63-year-old cells to make them youthful again. And what what we've seen is, and this is an incredible company called Throne Bio, that's coming to my longevity platinum trip, and there's a lot. We've seen people who've got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, who who they lose peripheral arm movement, ability to move their arms, move their legs. One treatment being able to move their arms fully and being able to ambulate. So uh, the body is infinitely adaptive if you can give it the right signals. And so, can we give it the right signals? What we've seen, interestingly enough, is Brian Armstrong with New Limit. We've seen Retro Bio, funded by Sam Altman. We've seen Altos Labs by Yuri Milner and Jeff Bezos. We've seen billionaire capital flowing into epigenetic reprogramming companies. David Sinclair, obviously one of the leaders in the field. I just was at his lab last 2 weeks ago, and the stuff he's doing is extraordinary. So, you know, it's it's a fun time to be alive, and I want to see as much of it as I can, which is why I spend half my world in longevity and half of my world in AI.
Which are starting to overlap more and more. Just to, do you think though, with everything that you're seeing in the longevity space, could we reach what you call escape velocity, where essentially for every year that you live, science will extend your life by more than a year? Essentially, this is when you reach that level. Essentially, you're kind of extending your life forever, theoretically.
I mean, that's the goal. And so I'm 63 right now. Uh, I feel like I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life, but my job is not to die of something stupid before reaching what's called longevity escape velocity. So I just published a book called Longevity Guidebook, in which I look at, and I I walk people through all the most important things that you can do today in sleep, diet, exercise, mindset, meds and supplements, annual sort of physical uploads to understand what's going on physiologically in you. And what I say is, I used to have a ridiculous lifespan goal, some hundreds of years. And I had that because when I was in medical school, I remember reading that the bowhead whale could live 200 years and the Greenland shark could live 500 years. And when I read that, I was like, interesting. If they can live that long, why can't we? It's either a software problem or a hardware problem, and we're going to be able to fix that. And so that's what I set as a goal. But the reality is the speed of change is so rapid, again, brought on principally by AI, other tools, single cell sequencing, epigenetic reprogramming, advanced CRISPR technologies, gene therapies, all of these things, again, with AI driving, we're likely to see a point where this idea called longevity escape velocity materializes. And then it's honestly, how long do you want to live? Now, Ray Kurzweil's prediction for longevity escape velocity is the end of the year 2030. As you know, Mario, Ray's got sort of a documented 86% accuracy rate if you go and look at Wikipedia, and that's pretty amazing. I interviewed David Sinclair, George Church, others, and their prediction on escape velocity is mid 2030s. Anyway, the point is it isn't 50 or 100 years from now. And the reason we're seeing these predictions for this near-term achievement is it's going to be on the heels of AI. We are a collection of 40 trillion human cells. Each of our cells is running something like 2 to 5 billion chemical reactions per second. We're a very complicated system. There's no way any humans can understand, but AI can, and AI will. And that's what gets exciting. Can we model in simulation, in silico, not just any human cell, your human cell, and create that model? And then we're going to create a tissue, a Mario tissue being assimilated in AI, then an organ, and then an entire body double. and understand, okay, what does this supplement or medicine do? What does this, you know, what's going on and how do we modify your aging parameters? Um, you know, the other crazy stuff that's going to happen is, are we going to see human uploads? But let's stay with more sane things like digital superintelligence and
I wanna dig into. So that's like I always do this whenever I have a conversation I'm really passionate about. I write an agenda. I've got like almost 100 questions to ask you, and I always pivot away. You mentioned David Sinclair. I was gonna go see him in Boston about 2 weeks ago when you were there. 2, 3 weeks ago, I was with Brian Johnson as well. So we're planning a time for an interview. Um, Talking about the longevity, escape velocity. So if you're saying just for the audience that's not deep in the space, um, essentially you're saying in the 2030s, either early or mid, maybe late 2030s, we'll reach a level where some people, potentially the majority of people, will be able to extend their life every year more than that year of aging. So it's essentially, you know, the ability to live forever and reversing aging. So when we reach that point, what about the ethical obstacles that we might face? You know, you're starting to threaten institutions like, you know, religion being the biggest one, the marriage, even the concept of retirement. What happens to society then? It doesn't, would that even matter? Because you have that and AI at the same time. It just sounds a bit scary. And do you think that these obstacles could delay that timeline?
so I so you're correct. We have built an entire society on the altar of mortality, right? Um, Till death do us part starts to have a very different meaning if you've got forever ahead of you. Um, so first of all, we don't know what the potential long term viability of the human body is. In other words, if we reach longevity escape velocity, you know, can you make it to 150 to 200? Are we going to have thermodynamic or just sufficient wear and tear that is limiting? And some we hit some other limitations. If you go back, just to give some context here, we go back to Homo sapiens, 200,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. The average lifespan was 28, 29, 30. And there's a reason for this because back then you would go into puberty at age 12 or 13. You were pregnant within a year. By the time you were 27, you were a grandparent. Your kids were having kids. And before we were, filled with incredible empty calories, before Whole Foods and McDonald's came around, the last thing you wanted to do to perpetuate the species was to steal food from your grandchildren's mouths so you would die. So there was never any incentives for us to live past age 30. And when you look at the human body, you see that. You see that after the age of late 20s, 30, 32, it's a slow decline. Your ability to grow muscle reduces, your hormones start coming down, growth hormone starts falling off. There's a whole, your stem cell populations begin to rapidly decrease throughout your body. And evolution never selected for us to have these longer lives. And so we need to fight that. Now, over the last century, the 20th century, 1900 to 2000, thereabouts, we were adding about 3 months per year to the average human life expectancy. And that was coming on the backside of antibiotics, better sanitation, pasteurization, and some breakthroughs in medicine. And COVID, it stopped that growth. It's now growing at about, a month and a half to 2 months per year. Uh, but there will be inflection points. And I think those inflection points are going to come as a result of AI. So Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, in January saying he could imagine doubling the human lifespan in the next 5 to 10 years. Then you see Demis Hassabis recently, I think it was on 60 Minutes, saying that he could imagine the end of all disease within the next 10 years,
Wow.
right? So this becomes interesting. Uh, yeah.
But do you worry this is I've used that example a lot, especially in crypto. I've been in crypto for a long time, and I've always said that the human brain
And by the way,
overestimates.
cheers to 100K plus, huh?
Oh,
Yesterday was an
yes,
epic
of
day for
course.
Bitcoin. Yeah,
It
yeah.
was. Cheers for breaking 100K again, and
Again,
hopefully for
yes.
good. Mm.
Yeah, hopefully good.
But talking about crypto, one thing I've always said is the human brain overestimates the short-term impact of innovation and underestimates the long-term potential. Um, and I tend to also believe that history always repeats itself, and we'll overestimate the short-term impact again and again and again. Is there a possibility we're doing this now with longevity and also AI? For you to say we're going to reach what you call the longevity escape velocity in the 2030s, that just seems hard to fathom. But it's not only you. Said David Sinclair said the same thing, and
So here's how you look at it. I don't need to reach longevity escape velocity in the 2030s. What I need, or what I desire, I don't need anything. What I desire is to add 10 or 20 healthy years to my life in this next decade, and add that amount of time. That's it. And then during those extra 10 or 20 years, there'll be another breakthrough that adds additional time. So one of the things going on, Mario, is, I founder and executive chairman of the XPRIZE Foundation. And a year and a half ago, we announced, after a long time, I raised $157 million and launched a $101 million health span prize. And this is a prize that we are offering teams around the world to add 20 healthy years onto your life. And so the rules are, with a therapeutic that you can deliver to a subject, to a patient, in under a year. So you can deliver it in a day, you could deliver it over the course of a year, but within a year, I deliver this to you, and it adds a minimum of 10 healthy years to your life, goal of 20 healthy years to your life. And if you do that, there's $101 million of prize money for grabs. We have 620 teams entered that competition so far from around the planet. And we'll have a winner of that, we believe, by 2030. So again, this idea that, we began the conversation by saying how extraordinary the speed, right? A millionfold increase in intelligence. When Elon was on my stage at the Abundance Summit, he was saying, by 2029 or 2030, we would see AI as intelligent as the entire human race combined, right? So we've got like a billionfold capability. So what does that look like when we have that level of scientific prowess supporting us on, there's nothing more important than your health. And AI is going to go heads down on that impact. So I think we're going to see some extraordinary breakthroughs in understanding. And yes, it may well be that it takes a little bit longer to get to this, endpoint of as long as you want, but I don't need that. What I'm looking for is, can we wipe out all disease? Can we wipe out cancer and heart disease and neurocognitive disease and metabolic disease in the next 10 years? I think the answer is yes. And then on top of that, can we start to understand why we age, how to slow it, stop it, potentially even reverse it? And again, I just need to know that I've got, in the next 20 years, a lot's going to happen. I want to make sure I'm in great health for the next 20 years. And then that buys me the next bridge of technology.
For someone, and last question on longevity, for just someone, working to make ends meet, I've always said the three things that matter most, and I think you'll agree, is sleeping well, eating well, and exercise. And that represents 80, 90, whatever percent of everything you could do. And
There's
everything else
one
is,
other,
I was going to
there's
ask you
one
for
other
two things.
thing.
It seems there's one thing.
Okay. All right. All right. The other thing, which is very important, and again, if you can't afford these crazy, I spend a significant amount of my capital on longevity. We can talk about all the things that you and I both do, but getting 8 hours of sleep, removing sugar from your diet, eating whole plants, exercising 4 or 5 days a week, and even just at a gym, or even just doing push-ups and squats, just getting your body moving. The other thing that's really important is your mindset. One of the single most important elements there was a study done and published in the National Academy of Sciences of 69,000 women, 1,500 guys, and it was adjusted for socioeconomic status across this large study, and it showed that optimists live 15% longer than pessimists, and so you get this double, benefit for being an optimist. And we see this over and over again. So your mindset matters an extraordinary amount. So that's pretty damn free. Hang out with people who've got an optimistic mindset. What you watch on TV, which podcasts you watch, what you read, what's on your walls, all those things. Our brains are neural nets. And the same way that you train a AI neural net by showing it example after example after example, what we let into our minds is training our neural net. In the same way that what we let into our mouth is feeding our body. So I'm equally careful to what I watch and listen to and read as what I eat.
Interesting. I'm trying to see how that would apply to me. So one thing I'm trying to focus on now is obviously running the businesses. I deal with a lot of stressful situations and stressful people and just political drama here and there. I've got two solutions. One of them is just approach it with kindness and try not to take things personally. Another one is to just ignore it and delegate it to someone else. Does the first one work, or should you just completely avoid it? Anything drama related?
There's another part of the equation. And I jokingly call CNN the crisis news network because of all of the, it's just delivering into my living room. And I don't watch the news. I just do not. I use news filters that I get on X or that I get through another AI company I started called Daily.ai that basically finds the news I'm most interested in AI and longevity and then brings it to me. Versus letting some publisher decide what's in the newspaper, because it's 10-1 dystopian news to positive news. The other thing, Mario, that you can do is realize
I'm
that
checking out Daily AI.
yeah. And so what you can do as well is realize that the dystopian news represents a sliver of all the news. And what doesn't happen is we don't get a representation of this breakthrough and that breakthrough and this incredible news and this incredible news because we gravitate towards the negative, because we pay 10 times more attention to negative than positive news. And I'm not saying that the negative news isn't true. It's just not a fair representation of all the incredible things. Global poverty drops 2.5%, just doesn't make it to the front page of the news. Yeah.
Going back to AI, you said something earlier that no one knows how the world would look like in 5 to 10 years. So, because the way I explain it, and you can add to it or correct anything that you disagree with, but essentially, if AI is going to be smarter than us, then we're just technically not capable to imagine what it will decide to do later on. So if that's the case, it's like saying ask an animal what humans will do. It cannot, process the same information the same way. So if that's the case, first, do you agree with that statement? And then if that's the case, then everyone predicting what will happen is essentially wasting their time. And how would that make it feasible to prepare for that world?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on predicting the future. And I spend a lot of time writing about this in my books. I have I did my original book called Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think, came out in 2012. The follow-on for that called Age of Abundance, Survival Guide for the Decades Ahead, that Simon Sisters Publishing will be coming out in beginning of 26. It's really hard to write a book about technology in the future right now because it's moving so fast. By the time it's published, it's out of date. And I also work on what I call these meta trends, and there are 10 meta trends that I'm focusing on. And one can look at where things are going from a first principle thinking, and one can look at it from what I call the 6 Ds of exponential. Whatever you digitize enters a period of slow, deceptive growth, and then 10, 20, 30 doublings later, it's disruptive. and you're dematerializing, demonetizing, and democratizing products and services. So Bitcoin was very slow, deceptive growth, and now it's disrupting, and we've dematerialized money. We've democratized it. We've demonetized access to all of the fees and all of that. 3D printing follows the same path. AI follows the same path. So these are, and what we can look at is from first principle thinking, what's likely to happen. And I agree, most everybody overestimates in the near term and underestimates in the long term. I had Ray Kurzweil with me. So Ray and I started Singularity University together, and then the Abundance 360 membership, my Abundance Summit. So I had Ray and Jeffrey Hinton on stage with me a couple of years ago. We were speaking about the speed of change, and Ray's evaluation, and I agree with him, is that we're going to see in the next 10 years, 2025 to 2035, we're going to see as much change as we saw in the last century, 1925 to 2025. And if you go back to 1925, the most advanced technology was the Ford Model T. In the US, at least, we had a 30% penetration of the telephone and 30% penetration of electricity in homes. And just this extraordinary progress. So what's it look like? You can break it down into AI is going to be embedded in everything all the time, everywhere. We're going to be partnered with AI in extraordinary ways we haven't thought about. AI will be embodied in humanoid robots. Elon's projection is 10 billion humanoid robots by 2040, which is pretty extraordinary. I mean, if these things really cost $30,000 or $20,000, it means you could lease a humanoid robot for $300 a month, $10 a day. And if it's that cheap, how many of those will you own, right? A couple. Then we see the future of transportation, fully autonomous cars. Obviously, it's car as a service.
Dubai here is coming up, is working on flying cars. I think they're about to launch them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So there's a whole set of these. There's probably about 20 reasonably well-funded, electric vertical takeoff or landing. I like flying cars better as a terminology. Yeah, and I think Middle East will be probably the first place these launch. They're supposed to be operational here in LA for the upcoming Olympics. And then we've got, massive acceleration in biotech and health. Obviously, crypto is on is a disruptive wave, a reinventive wave. So these metatrends are unstoppable movements, and reinventing. What I like to say is, listen, every company, every industry is going to get reinvented in the next 5 to 10 years. Nobody's going to escape this.
One thing you talked about crypto. You joked with the founder of Uber, Travis, that AI doesn't have bank accounts. But doesn't crypto essentially, I was joking yesterday with someone in the industry. I was saying that crypto could offer the guardrails for AI to break out, which is everyone's worry. Because you got a form of intelligence that's smarter than us. And historically, the form of, you've never had a form of intelligence that's smarter, listening to the orders or abiding to the orders or the rules that were given by an intelligence that's dumber than it is. So if we are the less intelligent entity, then why would AI need to play by our rules? And how could we prevent AI breaking out and then doing its own thing, which its own interests, like energy consumption, may not align with ours?
Yeah. This is the alignment issue that everybody's speaking about today. My hope, and it's a hope, right, is that, and I do have a belief that the more intelligent a system gets, the more abundance loving and life loving it gets. There's reasonably good evidence on this on terms of world leaders, that the ones who were the most abusive were the least educated. The ones who were the most life loving and abundance minded were the ones who were the most educated. So the question becomes, if there is an intelligence that is a billionfold more intelligent than humans, um, would it tend to be a benevolent digital god or a disruptive one? Um, these unfortunately Hollywood has taught us that all of this is going to hell in a handbasket. And one of the things I really hate is the notion that we don't have these positive models of the future to live into. We've got only the disruptive ones, the Terminator visions of the future. There's Star Trek, and that's like it. And so I'm really hopeful that we'll see, white mirror, not black mirror visions of the future that people can live into. And one of my hopes is that as AI becomes more and more capable, it will, if you ask it to go and destroy your competition, it will say, "Why should we do that?" There's plenty to go around for everybody. We're living in a universe of near infinite resources. Um, the biggest challenge, Mario, is not AI on its own. It's AI being used by humans with malintent, right? It's these next 5 years that are a very dangerous period of time until we graduate AI that is hopefully uh, sufficiently um, understanding of the world that disrupting humanity, disrupting the planet isn't required.
So you're essentially, because you do have concerns about open source, us losing control of open source AI, but you're saying us losing control of AI is less of a concern. Vinod, who's also an optimist, agrees with this. What's a bigger concern is, in his opinion, countries like China winning the AI race, or just anyone with malintent using AI for kind of centralization of power within AI. So you're saying that essentially you're saying that alignment is a bigger problem when it comes to humans aligning with humans than the alignment of artificial intelligence with humans. Because I just feel like it's hard to like it's just I try to be an optimist, and now I want to be even more of an optimist, considering that helps me live longer. But it's just hard to believe that like AI just doesn't need us, and it might even see us as a liability if it wants to grow as much as possible to ensure its own survival.
So this idea that it needs to grow despite us or uh, by disrupting us, uh, I don't hold viable. I think AI will unleash new physics and mathematics. In fact, I think, we're going to start to see almost all Nobel Prizes won by human AI, partnerships. Um, we live on a universe of near infinite energy. The idea that it needs to, you know, uh, put humans down to have access to what it needs doesn't make sense to me. It's like all the dystopian Hollywood movies where aliens come and steal the water from Earth, which is a ridiculous notion. Or, the Earth and everything we have here is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources. So, the question becomes if something is a billion times more intelligent than us and on the way to that level of intelligence, does it uplift humanity or does it find us a nuisance? I would hope that in the process, as its originators, as its, uh, you know, call it its parents, um, that we are able to learn and evolve in a collaborative fashion. It's Mo Gadot. Do you know Mo?
Yeah, of course. He's based in Dubai. I'm looking to do an interview with
He
him. He
is.
talks about
Yeah.
building ethics within AI like a child.
Yeah. I love Mo. And, Mo talks about the notion that, AI is a super being, obviously. And when Superman came to Earth from Krypton, uh, Superman landed in Kansas with the Kent family, which was a God-fearing, moral, loving family, and he grew up in a positive environment and became a superhero. And if he had landed instead in a a drug den with a bunch of gang members, he might have grown up as a supervillain.
There's
And
another movie
so,
of a robot. I can't remember, like Area something, where a robot grew up in a gang infest. Gangsters were kind of raising that robot, which was a good robot built to be good, but they taught it to do bad things. I can't remember the name of the movie.
and Hollywood is very powerful, and Hollywood's got responsibility for what the visions of the future it's creating for us. And I, for one, am putting my foot down and saying, for God's sakes, give us some positive visions of the future. Um, Having said that, I think Mo and I both agree this next 5 to 10 years is the challenging part. On the flip side of that 5 to 10 years, as AI becomes more and more intelligent, um, there's no reason for it to adapt our, you know, scarcity minded, fear minded mechanisms. Our brains are running fear and scarcity as a operating software because that saved us hundreds of thousands of years ago instead of running optimism and abundance, because there is nothing truly scarce. And what AI will give us is an abundance of anything and everything we want, all the energy, all the food, all the health, all the life, all of these things are coming. This idea that there's any real scarcity is false by almost every measure.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been, by the way, the name of the movie is Chappie, which is a police robot given artificial
Right.
intelligence and raised by criminals who teach it to commit crimes despite its innocent, childlike nature. But yeah, it is interesting because humans, we evolved as Homo sapiens for thousands of years to just be always in the mindset of scarcity, a survival mindset. But it's, for finally now it's changing, which is something the world needs because the world has, as you said, that has the resources for all of us to have a comfortable life. So essentially, when AI replaces our jobs, maybe it leads to another question: is how do you think we'll respond short term? When lawyers and doctors and teachers and philosophers, etc., start losing their jobs and mass. But so first, what will be the solution when it comes to getting some sort of universal basic income? And second, purpose. How do you fill that void where your purpose is no longer what you do for money?
Yeah, I think that is a big question. And I do believe a purpose-driven life is one of the most important things we can do. So, I've asked myself and I've asked my fellow entrepreneurs, okay, listen, when you've got this level of AI and capability accessible to you, and the things that you used to be doing um, are are meaningless or trivial, what do you do? And as an entrepreneur, I'm leveling up to what are the things I can do now? Where can I go now? Am I looking to build a moon base? Am I looking to build, the next level of whatever it might be? I think entrepreneurs, as they get new sets of tools, in other words, I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years, since, since high school and college. And every time I get new capabilities accessible to me, I don't stop doing stuff. I just level up to I can do now 10 times more between breakfast and lunch. And I think that's going to be true. There's going to be those individuals who don't level up. And you're right, for most of human existence, or for at least now in the last century, if you asked me, tell me about yourself, I tell you what my job is, right? We have uh, you know, we've given our lives meaning by what we do. But jobs are a recent invention, right? You didn't have jobs 1,000 years ago. You survived. And technology is a mechanism by which we now take a vacation from survival. Um, and I think we're going to have to learn to bring different types of meanings to our lives. The challenge is the speed of societal reinvention and social reinvention. So yes, we will have some version of universal basic income for sure. At the same time, the cost of living is going to massively demonetize, right? If you have access to autonomous cars, that operating costs are 4 times cheaper than owning a car, and everybody's being privately chauffeured every place they go. If you're the best healthcare on the planet isn't from a doctor, it's from a AI diagnostician, which is effectively free. The best education in the world isn't a private tutor from Harvard, it's the AI educator. So education and healthcare, a multitude of things we spend a lot of money on, begin to rapidly demonetize and democratize. And yes, we'll need universal basic income. The question becomes, what do people do with their time? Right? What do they do? What do they take on as a purpose? And I think this is where, again, I go back to we need constructed visions of the future. Um, in the in the Wall-E universe, everybody is uh, you know a fat couch potato watching TV and sucking on Slurpees. In the Star Trek universe, we're going out to explore, to find, you know, a bold new adventure. And I think we need these positive visions of the future. Um, Maybe we're going to all descend into the virtual worlds. My 14-year-old boys now are loving their video games, and AI is going to make those video games immersive and extraordinary. And we may have people who are spending their time in gameplay all the time. Hopefully, they'll spend more time with their families and outdoor in nature if they don't have to do the work. We're going to find out.
Talking about gameplay, we talked about the movie earlier, the one by Ryan Reynolds, Freeman, I think it's called. Do you see, for non-gamers, NPCs are essentially non-playable characters. So it's a character you can imagine like a policeman in Grand Theft Auto, which, the policeman, all they do is try to shoot you whenever you break the law. So do you think that we could see in the near future, first, can AI have consciousness, and what is consciousness? Because we still don't even understand it. And also, it's a question that everyone's trying to get the answer to. Where do you stand on this?
I don't believe that the systems that we are currently building and deploying will be conscious. I do believe that if we're able to get quantum computing working in the AI space, I think consciousness is a quantum phenomenon. Um, and I just did a deep dive into consciousness and quantum with with the head of Google's uh, uh, quantum computing network, and then the just head guy named Christoph Koch, who is the head of the Allen Brain Institute. And I do believe it is a quantum phenomenon, and there's work going on to link, if you would, the future of AI and quantum computing. So could it be in the future? Yeah, I would not, I could imagine that AI will behave conscious in the near term and could be conscious in the long term. Um,
Long term, as in, because the kind of definition of long term seems to be shifting right now. Would you say
yeah,
is in the next
decades.
decade, is decades, not in the next decade?
Yeah, I don't know, 10, 20 years. It's, quantum computing is just now beginning to become somewhat understandable and usable. And so we've got, uh, I think, a long way to go in learning. But as soon as it becomes something that is can be applied to neural nets and machine learning, which is one of the application areas that we'll see it applied to AI. I mean, all my favorite science fiction books start with a quantum cluster under Beijing, where an AI comes into full consciousness, and then starts an interesting storyline.
So it's too early to. I think the near future could see AI act conscious. So we start perceiving it as conscious, including non-player characters in games, and then that makes gaming in that what you call the metaverse a lot more immersive in a place that I think just hasn't gotten the attention it deserves. It got a bit of attention, especially when it comes to crypto a few years ago. Mark rebranded Meta, and then it's kind of people lost interest very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's going to reemerge over the next few years. Um, but having said that, how we spend our time is one of the most important things to understand. Where do people spend their time when everything they need is being done for them, right? It's not just AI and white collar jobs. It's humanoid robots. It's, humanoid robots that are powered by GPT-5 or Grok 4 or Gemini 3, right? These are coming. And so it's the embodiment of AI that, please go ahead and build me a house over there. Or what I love is going to be these humanoid robots being used to settle the space frontier, sending them to the surface of the moon first, sending them to Mars, sending them to the asteroids, and building settlements that have a jacuzzi and a steam room ready when the astronauts get there.
So essentially, you just have AI robots colonizing another planet, and then hopefully let us on board. Correct? So
uh,
if they're not aligned by then, we could be screwed. There could be another planet that we create that
God,
has its own consciousness and its own species. It could be your next book.
yeah. Yeah, well, listen, what we're seeing right now, I want you to imagine that intelligent life is is abundant in the universe, and I actually do think it is. Imagine a advanced alien species lands on Earth and brings with it, you know, new technology, new physics, new math, all of these things. That's essentially what we have happening right now. We've got, this advanced intelligence in digital superintelligence landing on Earth in the next 5 years. And it's going to bring incredible capabilities with it. One of the big questions is, as this AI is taking off, do we humans remain linear and sublinear, or do we couple with it and go for the ride? I mean, this is what I'm fascinated by.
You mentioned aliens. I know you've discussed it briefly in some of your interviews. Where do you stand on this? Do you think so you said they do exist? Are they hiding? Have we just not found them? Elon seems to be a bit more
Oh,
skeptical.
God. Yeah, well, here's the question, right? Uh, we're seeing all of these very high level military and government leaders coming out and disclosing exactly what they've seen in detail. And if it was one or two, I would be okay. The guy's just crazy. But the level and consistency of, dozens and hundreds of individuals coming out, there's a signal in that noise. And when you talk about hiding something in plain sight, um, I have to believe there is something that is very real there. And, you know, Elon is extraordinarily brilliant. And here's the reality. If he did know, I'm sure he couldn't tell us. And if he did know, of course he's going to say, nope, never seen it. I would know. I mean, at the end of the day, when people say it isn't true, are they saying that because they're under some strict non-disclosures and they can't? Um, but you know what? If in fact the White House disclosed aliens to the world tomorrow, I think it'd be news for 3 or 4 days, and then everybody would go back to what they were doing.
That's what you and Palmer were talking about. So first, Palmer hinted that he knows things he could not share on your podcast. Did he?
Yeah.
Just yes or no? Did he share them with you when the podcast ended?
We talked a little bit more about it. So for those who don't know, I do a podcast called Moonshots, and I had Palmer Lucky on for the fourth time. And I opened up by asking him about alien craft. And the question is ultimately that I ask is, if this is true, could the government really hide it? And the reality is, well, maybe they're not hiding it. Maybe they're disclosing it in a very predictable fashion just to get people ready. But it's interesting. One of the things that the question becomes is, aliens start showing up at the same time that we have nukes in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and then the prevalence at which they're showing up today is the same time that we're about to give birth to digital superintelligence. And the question is there any signal in that correlated noise or not? or is it just random? Are we just making it up? Uh, and again, as I say to everybody, we're going to find out in the next few years what's going on. And it's the most exciting time to be alive.
Most exciting, but also uh, relatively scary. It's just really hard to predict what's going to happen next. Where do you stand on this, though, in terms of the existence of aliens? Um, I've never really heard you talk about any religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs that you have. Is it, are we living in a simulation, or do you just say, I don't know, and I really don't even think about it, which is what I say?
I believe that the universe is teeming with life. I think life is the end result of uh, uh, entropy and physics. And I wish I had seen anything that I've seen absolutely zero that makes me believe that has given me a hint. Like I sort of like every night, please come and pick me up and take me. Go. I want to go with you. And I've seen nothing of that mind. Having said that, again, listening to the testimonies in Congress, right, by all of these highly decorated individuals is okay. This isn't bullshit. There's something there. And the question is, when does society really get fully disclosed and align on this? So
But
is there
it's
something that,
essentially, it's essentially already happened. Like we've had the UAP hearings. I remember interviewing Congresswoman Mace. Everyone was talking about it for a few days, as you said, and people moved on. It was the biggest
yeah,
story for a couple of days. Um, just the human brain is just fascinating.
it is fascinating. And yes, I think we're living in a simulation. And if we are, there's nothing different that I would do in my life. It's like okay, great. We're living in a simulation. Fantastic. Get up,
It's a good simulation. Exactly.
brush my, brush my teeth. There's a little bit of hope for me that, in fact, if there are advanced aliens that are here amongst us or on Earth or cloaked, and by the way, if any alien doesn't want to be known or seen, technology that's just 30 or 50, let alone 1,000 years ahead of us would allow them to move about without being disclosed. My hope is that they're here during this transitory time as we're going from, you know, nothing to digital superintelligence in the course of 50 years, which is insane, the speed of that. They're here to help us make a smooth and comfortable transition. Again, Star Trek is the closest thing we have to anything to give us a vision of this future. And of course, Star Trek has very famous episodes on first contact where humanity first makes contact with alien species.
It's fascinating to be an alien, watch this species almost destroy itself in the 40s and the 70s through nuclear weapons. And then
And
now
then
trying
have
to,
that beautiful Dubai behind you. The
yeah,
extra,
talking about living
you know,
forever. And deserts
yeah.
like this have flying cars around trying to create a new species on our own planet. I hope they find us fascinating. But, moving away from where the world will be in 10, 20 years time, for entrepreneurs, as an investor yourself, and we do something very similar on a smaller scale, incubating different projects. What do you say to entrepreneurs? What could two things, entrepreneurs and just the average person with a job, what could they do, if anything, to adapt and prosper in that as the world shifts?
So I think the most important thing, there is one most important thing, which is to find your purpose in life. There's a great quote from Mark Twain who said, there are two important days in your life, the day that you were born and the day that you find out why. And, if you're a mom or a dad, trying to make ends meet with, two kids and a mortgage payment and so forth, you can still find your purpose in life and, steal a few hours here and there, to do, um, to work towards that. If you're an entrepreneur, don't start your next company because it's a get rich quick scheme. Start your next company to implement and fulfill your purpose in life. The person who has a clear purpose, what I call a massive transformative purpose, is an individual who is actively saying no to all these things and yes to this purpose. And every time new capabilities come along, new AI capabilities, new financial capabilities, new, friends, putting it to work towards that purpose is extremely important. One of the questions I ask people is I say, listen, think of the most extraordinary people, the most extraordinary leaders, whoever you have in mind, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, if it's Elon Musk or if it's Steve Jobs, I don't care. Pick your favorite leader and ask yourself what made them an amazing leader. Was it their money they had, the technology they had? Was it the friends they had? Or maybe was it their mindset? Um, and if you believe it was their mindset that made them an extraordinary leader, an extraordinary entrepreneur, an extraordinary mom and dad, then the question becomes, what mindset do you have? Where did you get that mindset? And more importantly, what mindset do you need for the decade ahead? And I think that one of the most important things we can do is actively shape our mindset. Again, our brains are neural nets shaped by the things we let into it over and over again. Shaping your mindset by who you hang out with, what you read, what you watch is very important. So getting back to purpose, one of those mindsets is living a purpose-driven life.
You also said something earlier, is that AI will allow entrepreneurs to just do more. So that means people like me and you would wake up and we'd still want to do something in the world. But I feel like, in 10 years' time, is there going to be anything left for us to do that's going to be productive for the world other than enjoying life? It feels like there's no value left for us to add with, dark factories and AI teachers and AI doctors.
I have to believe we're going to just continue to up level what we are able to do.
Is that through what, integrating AI in our brains?
It's going to be through utilizing these tools. Like, one of the things when I'm teaching my community, so I run this Abundance Platinum program every year in the fall for 5 days. I take a group of 60 investors and family offices, and we go one year on the West Coast of the US, next year on the East Coast, and we meet with the top entrepreneurs and scientists in longevity. And one of the exercises I do early on is I talk about a longevity mindset, which is one of these mindsets. And I say, okay, what would you do with an extra 20 years of life? And most people can answer what they would do. Then I say, okay, what would you do with an extra 50 or 100 years of life? And people's brains break. It's hard for people to start imagine. I say, no, you have to think about how would you up level your life? What would you do? So I might answer, because I say, you need to have a why you want those extra 50 years. There has to be some reason that gets you out of bed in the morning. A friend named Dan Sullivan says, making your future bigger than your past, right? This is why you don't eat the chocolate cake at night. It's why you get up in the morning and go work out. This why is so important. So what would you do with an extra 50 years, right? So I want to start a colony in the moon, right? I'd love to go and explore Europa. I want to meet my great-great-grandchildren. I just recently created an AI version of myself at age 120, and had fascinating conversations with what life is like for me in those over the next 60 years. And it's unrestricted. We begin to dream at a level never before imagined.
I was just Googling Europa. So it's one of the moons of Jupiter. Is it one of the planets that has? Isn't that a planet that has similar? It has all the environment for life form. No.
Yeah, it's a water world, and it's when you look at 2001 and 2010, A Space Odyssey, the work of Arthur C. Clarke, he had advanced alien life developing in the oceans of Europa. And there's Titan, and there's there's a multitude of Jovian, Saturnian moons that have complex chemistry that could have life. Anyway, it's just we're one of the things that Palmer and I talked about on our Moonshots podcast as well is when else would I have enjoyed living, and it was the same answer for him and for me, which is during the time of the Great Exploration, as Magellan and the Americas were being settled, where you're going to a new world and you have no idea what culture you're going to meet and what the hardships or what you would find. I love that idea of being able to explore the solar system.
We haven't had that as a species in a long time. Now I'm reading *Sapiens* for
Yeah.
the second time, and it's just fascinating what we've been through. There's two things that Vinod said I want to get your thoughts on. So one of them, you remember it better than I. You talked about a study that was run where AI competed with humans to diagnose a disease. AI got it right about 80% of the time. No, 70% of the time. Humans got it right about 60% of the time. Sorry, AI 80%, humans at 60%. But when you added AI in humans, it got it worse. It got it right. It diagnosed the disease worse than AI by itself. Doesn't that concern you that humans are starting to become more of a liability for AI when it comes to doing more? And doesn't that go against your theory of like allowing AI will allow us to up level rather than replace us? It just seems that it could be wishful thinking.
Yeah. So after Deep Blue won chess against Kasparov, there was a period of time in which what they called centaurs, AI human teams, were beating an AI by itself. And that's no longer true. And the same thing was true in medical diagnostics, where a human by themselves would get the numbers I remember were something like 80%. Humans plus AI were getting like 85% accuracy, but AI by itself, without the human pulling it back, was getting, 88% or 90% accuracy. Humans are biased. We have these cognitive biases. We will tend to diagnose somebody with condition A if we've seen condition a few times in the recent past. So, yes, it is a challenge. Um, you know, here's what I keep saying: we're going to find all of this out in the near future. I think agility is one of the most important things. Uh, the people who are going to succeed the most aren't the ones who are smarter or the ones who are wealthier. It's going to be those who are more agile, more rapidly able to adapt to what's going on. All I can do is continue to look, and it used to be that you could project out 20 or 30 years. Today, at best, it's maybe 5 years.
Maybe next
Maybe.
week for me. Maybe next month at max.
Yeah.
There's
And this is called a singularity, right? So Ray talks about a singularity or the singularity, but there are these individual singularities, these moments uh, in which the speed of change in a field is moving so rapidly that you can't actually predict what is next.
Yeah, I think your interview with Ray is one of my favorite he's done. Another thing that Vinod is really concerned about, and I'm mentioning him because I was with him not long ago, is China winning the current race, potentially winning the
Mm.
current race. Is that genuinely a concern? Does it really matter who wins that race? Or is it just humanity?
Uh, you know, one of my concerns is that we've got this growing Cold War between U.S. and China, and I don't know if that goes anyplace good. At the same time, that what really concerns me is rogue individual actors, right? People, we talked again, Palmer and I talked about this, where China, at least is a rational actor. It's not going to, start World War III on its own without massive provocation. But you can imagine a religious zealot who is weaponized Ebola saying, listen, I want to end things because it's gonna make me a saint in heaven, or whatever the case might be. Um, so yeah, we've got these challenges coming, and we need all hands on deck. But as I've said before, I'd rather be dealing with the current problems we have with our current technologies versus technologies of the past.
Peter, so yes or no, in 2050, do you think we will have humans settling on Mars?
100%.
Oh, 100%. Okay. Do you think AI will replace government decision making?
I hope so.
That's a good answer. Um, do you think lifespan would be routinely above, let's say, 150, less than 2050?
In 2050, yes, I think we will reach a lifespan, not for everybody, but for those who do the work.
You've really mastered optimism. I love it. Um, do you think there'll be more robots than human workers by 2050?
Yes.
And do you think we would have solved climate crisis?
Yeah, I think that's one of the very first things that's going to fall. I think digital superintelligence is going to give us new materials, new capabilities. You know, we just awarded. I'd gotten Elon to fund $100 million XPRIZE for carbon extraction from the atmosphere and the ocean. We just awarded that $100 million to 6 teams that really are pushing rapid advances. And again, it's still early, and I think that AI will give us new materials, new chemistries, new physics that will enable us to deal with that.
Peter, really enjoyed this conversation. I could go on for another couple of hours. I know people love to say that at the end of every interview, but if you look at my questions, you'd probably agree. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for your show, your podcast. It's one of the few that I listen to. And I do hope we have this
Thank you.
conversation maybe in person again.
I look forward to that, Mario. I look forward to seeing you either in Dubai or when you're here in LA.
Appreciate it, Peter. Thank you for your time.